Welcome to Day 2 Perl training from Verification and Validation School. This training is absolutely free. As of now, we are under certain constraint. So while the training is under progress, you might not be able to ask any queries. But you can certainly like our Facebook page at www.verification, facebook.com verification validation. And you can like us here and you can post your queries in our page and we will be happily answering your queries. We hope you would have a great learning experience at the end of the day, and do not forget to like us at our FB page. That way you can express your gratitude towards us. Happy learning. So the agenda for day 2 is we will learn something about Perl's built-in variables. If you remember, in day 1 I had spoken something about strict warnings and diagnostics. Today we will go in detail about it. Then we will be learning scoping of the variables in Perl. We will learn about control flow. We will in day 1 we had a brief introduction on arrays. We looked at certain um, functions involved in arrays. Then we will learn something about context in Perl. Then if we have time, then we will go through hash, which is nothing but kind of dictionary in Java. So let's have an overview what we had learned in day 1. In day 1 we had started learning about Perl. We went through the brief introduction, we went through the installation in Windows and how we can set the path variable in Windows, and we learned about variables, we learned something about scalars, we had a brief introduction on arrays, and we learnt about how Perl is kind of a, there are more than one way to do it kind of language, and how it is interpreted language. You don't need to explicitly compile it and produce a bytecode or a class file that you do in other programming language. And if you also remember, I said that while other languages claim that there should be one best possible way, Perl allows you to decide what's most readable, most useful, most appealing, or the most fun way of programming. Experience and good taste will guide you as you design your code, but the choice is always yours. Express yourself, but be mindful of readability and maintainability, especially for those who come after you. Now, we learned about how to find the version in Perl, what version is installed in your system. We learned about the shebang lines. We learned about sigils and how we can write a variable name. We learned about certain function involved in scalar, the chop chomp function. Then we learned about the stdin. We learned about index. We learned about r index. We learned about LC first, substring function, repetition operator, concatenation operator. Uh, Auto increment and auto decrement operator was given as part of assignment. We also learned about the Boolean string and numeric operators. Then in arrays, we learned about how to declare or initialize an array. We learned about pop and push. We learned about shift and unshift. We learned about sorting an array, splicing an array, and reversing an array. Then also we had I had given few assignments uh, in the first class. I hope all of you would have completed this assignment before jumping to section 2. Now let's start our section 2. The section 2 starts with Perl's built-in variable. Okay. Okay, there are some certain special variable. As you might know, as of now Perl has variable like we have scalars, we have arrays to hold the values. In Perl, we have certain special variables that also hold values. One of them is dollar underscore. It is one of the most common special variable, and it is very much useful when you iterate over an array. Okay, so let's look at an example. Suppose there is an array at arr is equal to, you must be knowing how to declare an array, right? So 1 4 5 7 8. Okay, this is our array. Now how to iterate over array? We have to write something like for dollar. You can give any variable name here, then you have to give the array name. You have to then print whatever variable you have given over here. So this is the way we iterate over an array. Okay, now let's run this. If we run this, we see that it nicely prints the values 1 4 5 7 8. It nicely prints 1 4 5 7 8. Okay, now there is a smarter way we can achieve the similar thing without explicitly writing a variable. Here we have written $item. We can omit this item here. We can simply write dollar underscore. So whatever values are there in array will be individually assigned to dollar underscore, and successively it will be printed out to the console. Okay, so you now would be getting idea what dollar score is all about. Okay, it is kind of a deferred variable. Now there is another variable in Perl which is environment variable. Now you might be wondering about this percentage. Percentage is nothing but a hash. It's a hash variable, and we will be learning about the hash variable in the upcoming section. So we will keep it as it is for the upcoming session. Now there is another variable called argv. Okay, it is a very useful built-in variable. The built-in array contains the argument passed in the command line. Now if you would have programmed other language, for example if you would have programmed in Java, you might be passing something in argument. For example, Java, while running the program, if hello, you pass argument, right? arg1, arg2, arg3, whatever is there, these arguments are being utilized in this hello program, right? Now in Perl you can also execute a program like Perl hello arg1, arg2. You can have multiple arguments. Okay, and this will give you some results. I will show you how it gives you result. Now these arguments are stored in a special Perl built-in variable, an array, which is called the argv. Okay, let's look an example for it. Um, I will say $x is equal to, okay, I will write print hello at argv. Okay, this is a very simple one-liner program. See, I have missed the shebang line that has exclamatory mark user bin Perl, because in Windows it is not required, while in your Unix or Linux machine it would be required. As a This is a very simple one-liner, but it uses the Perl special variable argv. Okay, now how to run it? So in order, I was using this IDE to run this program, but for a program which has got argument, we have to run it using command line prompt. So I will go to the command line prompt. Okay, then I will look for the directory where the program is stored. Here the program is stored as 2.pl. If you remember, this program name is 2.pl. Then I will copy this location. I will do a cd. Okay, then I will run perl 2.pl. Now as argument I will pass my name. Okay, after I do this, I'll press enter. If you can see here, it prints hello Mohanty, because it is printing the argument that is passed into the command line, and it is an array. An array can hold multiple scalar items, right? So if I do perl 2.pl space Mohanty students Ram Rahim Jesus, okay, and give an enter, you see that it prints hello Mohanty students Ram Rahim Jesus, everything. It, whatever the arguments are being passed in the command line, it gets stored in this special argv variable. Stores the arguments passed in the command line. So the moment this program prints out the entire array after adding a hello to it, it prints out the same thing over here, right? Hello Mohanty students Ram Rahim Jesus, blah blah, everything. Now if I do a print the teacher name is, I told you in an array the individual items are scalar. The scalar is expressed by a dollar. argv, the first item is always 0, indexed 0, \n. Now the teacher name is assigned the first variable or the 0 indexed variable of the argv array. So now if we write this program perl 2.pl Mohanty student 1 student 2, it prints out hello Mohanty student 1 student 2. The teacher name is Mohanty because the first variable is being printed here. print students are dollar remaining argv1 and dollar argv2 backslash n. Okay, if I run this program, hello Mohanty student 1 student 2, the teacher name is Mohanty, students are students 1 and student 2 because the remaining rules are given here. Okay, now we learnt about this argv. There are a lot of inbuilt Perl inbuilt variables, but you will learn them as we go ahead. Like at underscore, we have something called $0, we have something called $8, $B. You have utilized it, right, while using a sort. Then we have at inc, we will learn it when we will be learning about packages. At inc, has inc, we have dollar exclamatory mark. It is a very important variable because it stores the value of system error call, so we will be also looking at it. We'll look also at something called $@. Okay, now we will be learning a very important concept called scoping. Okay, scoping. What do you mean by the word scoping? Scoping means a range. A range, and scoping of variable means the range of a variable in a program, where it can reach, where it cannot reach. It is a way of ensuring that a variable declared in one part of your programs are not available in other portion of the program. This helps to prevent unrelated code from accidentally changing those values. Okay, when we study about scoping, the first thing that we would be using is my variables. Okay, my variables. You might have you might have noticed that while writing a program, I sometimes write variable starting with my. Okay, so what is this my all about? Variable declared with my are referred to as lexically scoped. These are lexically scoped. This means that they do not exist outside the scope in which they are declared. This generally means file scoped or block scoped. We will look at an example to understand what is this my variable. For example, I declare my dollar value is equal to 42. Now I begin a simple small block, and here I write my dollar value is equal to 100. Okay, then I will print dollar value here. Again I will print dollar value here. Value inside the block. Value outside the block. Now we will run this program. I'm not sure if this. Okay. If you see, the value inside the block is 100 and the value outside the block is printed as 42. What does it mean? You declared a variable value in the starting of the program and assigned it 42. So as it is not inside any block, the scope of this value is in this entire namespace or in this entire program. Then we start a small block and then you assign the value 100 and you print it. So the value of this value as 100 becomes lexically scoped inside this block and it is being not available outside the block. So you understand, whatever changes you do to this scalar variable is not propagated outside this block. Now you imagine what kind of safety net comes into picture when you have scoping in place. This is very much useful and you must use it every time you write your program, because that way your program gets more robust and you are away from any danger that your variable is being accidentally changed somewhere. Okay. Now there is another kind of variable which is called package variable. It won't make any sense if I speak of package variable right now because we are yet to learn what is a package all about. But remember, if you are aware of object oriented programming, we have classes. Okay, we have classes. We have multiple classes. For example, class 1, class 2, class 3. And class are referred to as a blueprint of the object. Now you might also know there are certain programs which can use these multiple classes, right? In Perl we have something called package. Package 1, package 2, package 3. These multiple packages can be utilized in a single program. Okay. Now suppose there is a variable in package 1, there is a way to protect it the way it is being used in package 2 or in package 3. There are way you can, if you assign a value to package 1, for example $a has got a value of value 3, in a different package either you can access the value of a as 3 or you can have a different value assigned to it. Okay, and in package 3 you can have the same value of $a or you can utilize the different value. So we will learn about this more when we study about package. And now we will learn about strict warnings and diagnostics. Strict warning and diagnostics. We will learn about strict warning and diagnostics. So in our program, when I started a program, I told you to start program with hash exclamatory mark user bean per, then you must write use strict, use warnings, use diagnostics. as I told in the earlier class, if you remember, diagnostics can be omitted if you become expert programmer, because that way you can concentrate on your error much rather than um, getting idea on how to fix the error. Diagnostics will give you an idea how to fix an error. Remember, when you use strict, what is strict all about? Let's go in detail. Strict. The vast majority of time, strict means declare your variables. Declare your variables. If you miss declaring your variables, your program will not run. Okay? Let's look an example for it. I have my dollar x is equal to my dollar pet is equal to Tipu. Now I have a my dollar dog is equal to, for example, I misspelled pet as step. Okay, then I try to print the name of dollar dog. If I do this, let's omit this because we would be learning this. Let's comment out. Comment is a hash mark in Perl. So let's see what happens here if I run this program. It says that the global symbol tape requires explicit package name. It is aborted due to the compilation error. It means that tape has not been declared. So unless and until it is not declared, you cannot use it. The moment you change it to pet, see, it prints out Tipu. Nice and easy, right? Okay. See, let's omit this my variable over here. Now once you omit it, see what it does. Global symbol $dog requires explicit package name. Dog requires explicit package name. Everything requires a package name. So it enforces that you scope your variables. The moment you assign it as my, it works on fine. So it has got two things to do. First of all, it makes you sure that you declare your variable. The second thing is it also ensures that your variables are being scoped. Now we will learn about warnings. What are warnings? For warnings, things are a bit different. They are generally just warning you about bad things your programming is doing. But in reality, these things might be okay. Your program will run, but warnings are printed when your code thinks you are doing something dodgy. You should look at the warnings closely to find out what actually they means. Your program might run, but you might face some warnings. There are two ways to declare the warnings. Either you can use this explicitly use warnings, or you can have a minus W over here. Both the things are quite same, but it is different when you have scoping in place. For example, if you declare a block like this and you have some code snippet over here, If you do a use warning here, so this use warning will be only active inside this particular block, and if you have another block of code, this block of codes won't see this pragma. These are called pragmas, okay? So use warning is kind of a locally scoped or lexically scoped. But if you use a minus W over here, these use warnings get scoped globally. So every block can access this pragma and will throw warning if anything dodgy or fishy happens. The next thing we are going to learn is about diagnostics. I think we had a pretty much good discussion on diagnostics. Diagnostics gives you friendly error messages, and they also tells you how to fix those things. For example, if I have a program print hello world, I miss a quote, I give a backslash n and a single quote over here, then I try to run this program. See, it says, it gives you the warning that the string operator terminator is missing somewhere. It also says that you can use this way to fix it. Okay. Now the moment I give a double quote here, prints out. There are also variables in scoping section I forgot. We have something called variables like hour. We have got a state variable. Remember, it is just like a static in other programs. We will look it in the upcoming class where we can use it. It will return its value even if it is lexically scoped. Now we will learn about the most interesting concept of every programming language, which is called looping, iteration, etc. Whatever you can call it. The first looping is like if, else, else if. Now see, in Perl, else if is pronounced in a different way. It is ELSIF. There is no E inside else if, okay? If I like Perl, I code, else I drink whiskey. In real-time situation, you might come across situation like if certain thing is good, I do this thing. If that is bad, I throw it. So the Perl language also behaves the same way. If apple is good, eat it. Else, throw it. You are clear on it, okay? Now the else if, what happens if you have multiple else if condition, like if whiskey is there, drink it. Else if throw it. else if milk, throw it. Else I don't know what to do it. Conditions are like this. So we will have a real-time example of if let's have some interactive program. Okay, and print enter the value of enter today's temperature. $x $x is equal to stdin. Then what it does, if you remember, stdin accepts the input value that is given in the console. It reads it. We have to chomp it because chomp removes the new line character. If $x is greater than 45, print it's too hot, have a chilled beer. N. Else if $x is greater than 30 and you can write and here, or you can write and here like this, and $x is less than is less than 45, print amigos, hooray, a nice weather, let's go outing. Else print it's damn chilly, let's stay indoor and drink whiskey. So a nice little program is being written here. What it does, first of all, it asks you the temperature. Enter today's temperature. Nice printing statement, nothing hi-fi code in this. Then what it does is it assigns whatever input the user gives to the variable $x, and the moment you give $x, the stdin, you press enter, so chomp is being used to remove the new line. Now what it does, it checks the value of $x. If it is greater than 45, it prints out it is too hot and let's have a chilled beer. In the else if section, it checks if the temperature or the $x, whatever value the user has given, is greater than 30 and is lesser than 45. If this condition is being satisfied, what it does is it prints out hooray, a nice weather, let's go outing. Else it prints it's damn chilly, let's go enter and drink whiskey. Let's run it. It asks the temperature, enter today's temperature. Now the user enters 47 and it is too hot, have a chilled beer. Nicely it prints out. So let's try it again. $35. Hooray, a nice weather, let's go outing. So we learned about if and else. You have also something called unless. It is nothing but the opposite of if. I do not recommend you guys to use it because it is very confusing. Okay, moving on to the next operator is the ternary operator, which is a question mark. It's a very interesting operator. As many other programming languages, the Perl also offers a ternary operator as a shortcut for if and else statement. So it is like value is equal to, you give a condition. Now if it is true, what happens? If false, what happens? We will look into example of this. The ternary operator. Print enter dollar enter first number. Now you know how to capture this value, right? $x is equal to stdin. You have to jump the value of $x. Now enter second number and you assign it to $y. You jump it. You have a $max. Now you want to decide which one of the two number is greater. Let's save it. So you have a $max. If $x, here you write the condition, $x is greater than $y, question mark. You remember this syntax, right? Sorry. You remember the condition, then a question mark. If true, what it does? If false, what it does? So you can write print $max, print $max, then the syntax says if it is false, print $max is equal to, if x is greater than y, max is $x, you can write it here. If it is false, $y. Do you understand this? $x, $y. I will tell you the more advanced concept on this, but as of now you understand this, that you assign this to a variable $x, give a ternary operator, if $x is greater than $y, then the maximum value is $x and $y is the minimum value. But if this condition is false, if $y is more than $x, then this $y gets assigned to $max. Hence we can do a print greater number is $max. Run this program, enter the first number, I entered it as 20, enter second number 21, greater number is 21. If we would have written in if and else, we would have written it like if $x is greater than $y, print $x is the max value, max less n, close the loop, then else function, write a code, then enter. So a simple one-liner can eliminate this. $max is equal to $x, $y, $x. Now even you can omit this line. How? Twenty, 23. Greater number is 23. So it is, as I said, there are more than one way to do it. You can decide whatever way you like to program your code. The next loop is the for loop. For loop, or somebody write it as for each also. This is specially used if we have, if you are trying to iterate over array or hashes. Hashes we will see it in the later part. As of now, we will stick to arrays, and you need to go through each element in the data structure and decide to do something with that particular element. If you remember, we iterated over the array here using the for loop. We try to print each elements. You can do many things. If you want to print the triple of this number, what you do? $y is equal to $_ into 3, and then you print $y. So what it does is it multiplies every element by 3, then prints it, then assign it to y, then prints the value of y. If you run it, what it does? It beautifully prints out 3 times multiplied to the each element of an array. The same thing can be accomplished by the for each element, the for each function. It does the same thing. So for and for each are identical in Perl. Now you understand what a for loop does. Interestingly, in Perl, we also have a C style syntax for I don't know, it is automatically capitalizing it. For $I is equal to 0, $I is less than 5, $I plus plus, write some lines of code, This thing is also available in Perl. Let me give you an example for this. For example, here for $I is equal to 0, $I less than 2, $I plus plus. You know how the single element of an array is nothing but a scalar into 4. I assign it to a value $y. Then I print the $y. So the individual elements, see here it will first become 0, then 1, 2. So it will process the first 3 elements. Sorry, I have given it as less than 2. So less than 2 means 0 and 1. It processes the 2 element. 4 it becomes 16 because it gets multiplied by 4. Now we will study something about the while and until loop. While the bottle is full, you keep on drinking. What happens when the bottle gets empty? What do you mean by this statement? Till the bottle is full, you keep on drinking. The moment it becomes empty, you stop it. So the while loop, whatever condition you give here, till that condition is true, whatever code you write is being executed. The moment this condition becomes false, it gets out of the loop. So let's take an example for this. For example, I assign $y is equal to 5. While $y is greater than 0, print the value of y is $y \n. Then always remember to have a condition which will either increment it or decrement it. Otherwise, it will go on an infinite loop. There must be some condition to break this. Okay, always utilize this inside your block. Otherwise, it will go into infinite loop. Now, what is the condition required to break this loop? Y must be less than 0 at some point of time or equal to 0 at some point of time, then it will break. So I auto decrement it. Now let's see how it works. Okay, I run the program. The value of y is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. After 1, when it becomes 0, y minus minus, it comes out of the loop. Now the interesting thing is, till the time it is executing inside the while loop, it doesn't bother to look what is there and outside the while loop. So when I do this, you see that, okay, thank God I am out of the loop is printed only after this while statement has been completely flushed or executed, right? There is something called until loop. Until that condition is true, it executes it. The until stuff is being left to you as an assignment. Okay. Now we would be learning about the last function, next, redo, continue. The last built-in automatically exits a loop, break, something kind of a break. For example, to find the first perfect, now let me give you an example how to utilize a last thing. My $now is equal to 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 25, 49, 32, 36, 64, 43, 42, 81, 94, 99, 100. Now if you see this array, it contains a mixture of numbers which are perfect square and which are not. For example, 16 is a perfect square, 25 is a perfect square, 49 is a perfect square, 36 is a perfect square, 64, 81 and 100 are perfect square, while the remaining are not. Now for example, I ask you a question, for me, get the number which are perfect square. What you do? You will write a program to get me the perfect square. So how your program looks like? You declare an array my p square. Okay, you declare an empty array. Then if integer then we will for each elements in the number, you need to iterate it. You need to iterate over the entire number to see which is a perfect square or not. For each at number, my $root is equal to the square root of each individual. Remember $_ here. My root is equal to square root of $_. Then again what you do, you compare that if the integer value of $root is equal to the $root. What does the integer function do? It eliminates any decimal or float values. Okay, it takes out the integer value. For example, 5.4 becomes 5, 2.3 becomes 2. That is what the integer do. It rounds up the value. Now the root stores the square root of the individual elements of the array. So if you check that if the integer value is equal to the actual root value, then only it is a perfect square. For example, if you take the square root of 6, what it becomes? The square root of 6 becomes 2.6. Let it be square root of 2.6. Now this value gets stored in the root. So the integer of root becomes 2. Integer of root becomes 2. 2 is not equal to 2.6. So it will not enter into the if loop. Now we will utilize the push function. What we will push? We will push the perfect square PSQR, which was declared the $_. We will close the for each loop. Then we will print the it is a very simple program. It finds out the perfect square. You understand this program, right? Have a look at this program at your leisure. But I am trying to find out the perfect square. I will run this program. First I have to save it. pftsquare.pl. So it prints out all the perfect square. If you take a look at this, 9, 16, 25, 49, 36, 64, 80, 100. It prints out all the perfect square in the picture. The remaining thing like 3, 6, 12, 15, 32, 43, 42, all these things are discarded. So you understood how to iterate a program, how to filter out using the if function. Now what if my question was, we are learning about last here. What if my question was to get only the first perfect square? Out of this, I only need the first perfect square, which is 9 in this case. Right, which is 9 in this case. What we need to do? We need to put a last here. The moment I give last here, what happens is there will be no iteration. The moment it gets a perfect square, the moment the if loop is done, it comes out of the entire loop and it will print out whatever there is being pushed into the array. In fact, we don't need an array because we only need one number. We can have a scalar here. Okay. Done. The moment we find the first perfect square, it will exit out of the loop and it will print it. Let's see if it runs fine. 9. Voila, it got it. So we learnt about what a last is all about. So there is another thing called next. What is next all about? Next means keep on executing. So suppose you want to find the next element, sorry, the last element, which is a perfect square. What you do? Give it next 100. The last element is being found. So next means it will keep on continuing. It will keep on executing the loop. And the last thing is being returned. So we completed about next. We will now learn about statement modifier. What is a statement modifier? Statement modifier is something like you have a statement, we have a statement modifier, statement, then you can have a if expression, you can have a statement and unless expression, you can have a statement and a while expression, so on and so forth. Now let's look at an example of statement modifier, which is at array is equal to 1 to 10. Now I give a statement which is print. What I have to print? Dollar underscore backslash n for each at ARR. Now see how it runs. It prints 1 to 10. So we had a statement, then we had a statement, then we had a condition, and it worked fine. Okay. In Perl, there is another something called given when. Given when syntax is like, given a certain expression, there will be a block of code. What to do? Given certain expression, then there will be when. What to do? I will give you this I will teach you this with an example. Like, for example, print enter a number backslash n. Now store this number to $x stdin. You have to jump the $x. Okay. Now given $x. Okay, the block starts here. When 0 print 0. When 1 when 2 buckle my shoe. When 3 print 3 is free backslash n 4 Maths.pl. Now you have to give a default. If any of this condition doesn't match, what to print? Print I do not understand the number. Listen. I do not understand the number. Then you finally end the given loop. Okay. So nicely it has been done. What the program does, it will accept the input from a number as a number from the user. Then given that number, if it is between 0, 1, 2, 3, it will print whatever message is there in the program. Else it will print I do not understand the number. Given when? F5. Syntax error at line 4. Syntax error at line 4. So let's check what line 4 given a number. Good. Oh, okay. See, because we have forgot. No. What is being expected? Print 0 when do not understand why there is a syntax error given $x. At given.pl near line near 4. Let me hard code it. No, it doesn't. Okay. Code. Let me take a look at it. Okay. So I just forgot to tell you one thing. When you have to use given $num, given when, you have to use something called use feature switch. This is a very important pragma, okay, that you need to use so that your program works successfully. So enter a number. You enter 4. Knock at the door. Okay. Now let's run it again. Enter a number. You enter 3. 3 is free. Now let's enter something which is not identified in the when block. Enter a number 5. I do not understand the number which is in the default section. Okay, so this here we end the given when part. Now we have learnt a lot of things. As I told you in the last class, after few sections I will again come back to array to have a broad discussion. When you have my dollar, okay, at students is an array where I have a lot of students. Ram, Rahim, Geeta, Sita, Meeta, Rita. So we can access the individual elements by this way, it will give me the first element, which is Ram. It will give me the second element, the third element, which is Gita. Similarly, if I want to access Rita, the last element, I can start. I can the last element by giving the index as -1. It will give me Rita. So this is particularly used when you care about the relative position. -2 will give Mita, -3 will give Sita. From here it starts from 0, from last it starts with -1. Now there is another function that I need to tell is split function in array. Split is generally used to convert a string to array. For example, I have a string which is ba black sheep. I have a string $x is equal to so, and another string I have is $y is equal to twinkle 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 little star, how I wonder. So in this string every character is separated by a comma, while in this string every character is separated by it is separated by a dash. Now I want to take out individual element of this. So split has got a syntax which is split. Here you have to give the pattern on what basis you have to split. Then you have to give the string variable and then you assign it to a array. Okay, let's look at an example. Print $x \n now at n1 is equal to split the first pattern. Here the pattern is comma separated values $x. Okay, let's print $y $x then we will have a second array 2 will be based on the dash. Okay, here we will print at error 1 \n, then we will print array 2 \n. So split is basically splitting an string based on some separation value to array. So let's run this program. It has got some error which is okay. I got it. Here we do not, I forget to have. Okay, so let's run this program. So here I first printed the string which is bye black sheep, that is a comma value. But here when I assign it to array, it becomes space, because array, between array there is a space. Okay. For y, it is twinkle twinkle with a dash value. When I splitted it based on this dash, it becomes separate element. What is the advantage of this? Now if I want to print the first element of array 2, I can print it as print dollar array 2. The first element is 0. Then it will print twinkle. Okay. So this is split. Next we are going to learn about join. The opposite of split is join. Suppose you have an array. Suppose you have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. You want to join it, so you have to join it, join based on a comma. At here. So what would this do? What would this do? This would so if you join this, it will become a string. So let's try it out. We have an array dollar, sorry, the ARR is equal to 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. $x is equal to join based on a comma. Now what we will join? Let's join them with a dot. Okay. What we will join? The array. Now let's print the $x. You will see all the numbers are joined by a dot. 1 dot, 2 dot, and this is a string. Now if I wish to join them with a star mark, what it becomes? There is a star mark. There is a star mark over here between all the elements of the array. If I join them with a percentage sign, there will be a percentage sign between the elements of the array, and this is a string. Now the interesting thing is that suppose I join them with plus. What happens next? They will be joined by a plus. So what is the interesting thing in this? I will then declare a y. Simple write another function called eval $x, and then if I print $y, you will see the actual magic here. $y backslash n the string x is joined with a plus value, and when we do a eval, in fact all this value got added and the sum is 15. So it is a very nice way to add the elements in a array. So we now covered join. We'll learn something about array slices. Array slices is nothing but, for example, you have an array Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Geeta, Meeta, Rita. Array slice is like obtaining specific elements of an array. To obtain the specific elements of an array. So let's look at an example. At ARR is equal to Ram, Sita, Vax, Zit, Meet, Reet, Reet. So this is an array. If I print at main, I want to create another array at main from this particular array. What I will do at ARR, I will slice it. I will select 0, 2, 3, okay. Then if I print at main, it will pick up those indexes only. This is slices, okay, remember it as slices. So what you see, it has picked the 0 index, the 2 index, the 3rd index of the array and has assigned to the main. So it is called a slicing of an array. It is different from splicing, it is slicing. The next thing that, a very important thing that we are now going to discuss is the context. The next thing that we are going to discuss now is context. It is one of the more useful features of all. Context means an expression can change its value based on what the calling code expects to receive. This sounds strange and some new programmers, not you of course, get confused by it. When you get used to it, you will find it damn easy and natural. There are three main types of context. One is scalar, the next is a list, and the next is a void. There are three contexts, and it means what the left side of an expression wants to get. What the left side of an expression wants to get. Now let's start it. My at new array is equal to at old array. I'm first discussing about the list context, okay? At new array is equal to at old array. What happens when I do this? The contents of old array gets copied to the new array. Let's see it in example. old array is equal to 1 2 3 8 9 0 at new underscore array is equal to at old underscore array. Print so what it does, the new array contains the value of the old array. It gets copied. So the left hand side of the expression, which is the new array, it wants all the elements of the old array. Okay, this is one of the context. The next thing is, what happens if I have only two elements, item 1 $item 2, and I give it to the whole of the array. And at array contains Ram, Rahim. Let's see this. Print $item 1, print $item 2, so item 1 is assigned the first value, item 2 is second value, because the context here, it is a scalar context. Item 2 is another scalar context. So it receives the scalar items from the array. Ram gets assigned to item 1, Rahim gets assigned to the item 2. Now even if there are another element, Sita, Rita, Nita, the rest of them will get ignored. Only Ram and Rahim will be picked, because here it is expecting two elements. Always remember, these two brackets are vital. If you omit them, there will be an error. There will be error or certain unexpected result. Now what happens if I omit them? See, this will give you an error. It gave you 5. Item 2 gave you 5. I will tell you why. I told you it might give also unexpected result. Now if I remove this, see what it gives. Item 1 is 5, item 2 is undefined. Why it happened? Because this tries to enforce a scalar context on this array. Scalar context of this array is nothing but the length of this array, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? This is 5. 5 means the length of the array. So it returns the length of the array. Now when we had a second item, $item 2, remember, always the right hand side of the expression get evaluated. So in this case, item 1 is nothing. Item 1 is null. If I write as item 1, I write it as item 2, item 1 will have null value because item 2 only enforces a scalar context on this array. It gets the length of this array and assigned to item 2, while item 1 is left as null. You got it? Item 1 is left as item 2 is 5. So it is very vital to understand the context when you are working in Perl, because when you will be diving into more depth, this context will play a very much important role. So now you understand how to find the length of an array. The length of array is nothing, but if you try to enforce a scalar context on array, it will give you the length. So item 1 would give you length here. Item 1 is 5, which is nothing but the item 1 is 5, which is nothing but the length of the array. Now we'll look at certain ways of getting length of an array. So $x is equal to, if you assign it as array, it gives you the length. Even if you $x is equal to, if you write scalar at array, it gives you the length of the array. Now there is a very important thing also. There is something called length function. It also gives you the length of the array. Now there is a very good stuff. If I give $x is equal to $hash array, it is the last index of the array. $hash array is the last index of the array. So in case you want to iterate over the loop, you can write something for 0 to, how to find the last index of the array? For $I is equal to 0, $I is less than equal to $hash array I plus plus, and write the code here. So $hash array gives the last index of the array. Let's look at an example. Okay, it should be item 1. So it gives 4. 4 means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nita is the fourth index, so last index is 4. So we become clear that $hash array, it gives the last index of the array. Now in case you want to merge two array, can you tell me what, in case you want to merge two array? Merge to array. Think about the list context. At new array is equal to at error 1 at error 2. It will merge the two arrays. Now what happens if I do this? At, in the context sense, at ARR 1 $x is equal to at ARR. What happens? What do you think is assigned to $x? Let's look at this. What do you think gets assigned to $x? And what do you think is assigned to error 1? Array are greedy by nature in Perl. So what happens when you do this? The array will take up all the values of error 1 will take all the values of array, and nothing will be left for $x. So x has got nothing. Now what happens if you do it other way around? What happens if you do it other way around? It is compiled from left to right. So $x gets the first value of array and the remaining values are given to error 1. Right? Let's check it out. Okay, so here x is got the Ram and error 1 has got Ram, Sita, Rita, Nita, the remaining elements. So you learned about context, you learned about a lot of things today, so it is time for practice. So I will give you some assignment right now, and you don't need to mug up everything, need not learn everything what I taught today in a single day, because it is a huge course. You need to take your time, drink a lot of water so that you can memorize everything. Your brain gets thirsty when you try to punch in every detail element at a one go. So take breaks and do as much of practice as you can. The more you program, the more you code, the more expert programmer you become. So now it is the time for assignments. Okay, the first question is, write a program to generate the output like below. Two, 4, 6, 8. Now you see these are printed in a steps of 2. Okay, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. Now in case of a multiple of 10, you square it. Okay, so the output must be like this. Okay, now question number 2. Write a program that accepts the mark of a student and depending on mark it should print. What it should print? Fail, mark is less than 35. To print second class, if mark is between 36 to 60. First class 61 to 75. Distinction is greater than if mark is greater than 75. Okay. Now third, read 5 numbers from the user. The moment num number the moment if 99 is red, quit the program after printing invalid input given. Okay, now write a program to print all prime numbers till 50. Write a program to print the following. Okay, must print like this. Welcome to Perl. Number 6th assignment is that is an array which is India, Sri Lanka, China. Okay, read a string from the user and check if that string is present in the array. If present, print good, else print bad. 7. Initialize an array is equal to 25 to 40. Then print the sum of the array elements. 8. Write a program to read a number n from the user. Read n different strings. After all the strings are read, print the array separated by column. Okay, so how will it, for example, enter number, the user enters 3, then it will read 3 strings: Ram, Sita, Rita. Then it will display something like Ram, Sita, Rita. Okay, so today this is the end of session 2. Hope you had a wonderful learning today. If you have any doubt, you can like us on our page and post your queries. under appropriate section, and the Perl day 1 video is also present in this page. Happy learning.